Heartwarming moment, woman misses flight to aid elderly man unbelievably, he owns the airline. In the crowded airport, the air buzzed with excitement, a sea of families, colorful graduation caps, and the heady aroma of coffee wafting through the air. Sarah, a 38-year-old caregiver from a bustling suburban town, navigated through the throngs of jubilant graduates and relatives, her heart pounding. Her daughter's graduation ceremony was mere hours away, a milestone that felt both exhilarating and agonizing to reach. Yet, as the clock ticked ominously, anxiety laced her thoughts about the future and how to celebrate the day on a shoestring budget. Suddenly, Sarah's world trembled. She spotted Mr. Thompson, an elderly veteran, clutching his chest and collapsing on the hard airport floor. Time froze for Sarah. The vibrant atmosphere enveloping her faded as fear gripped her. She pushed her hopes aside and rushed to his side. "Mr. Thompson!" she cried, kneeling beside him. "Can you hear me?" Her hands shook as she pressed her fingers against his wrist, finding a weak pulse. As she waited for the medical team, reality bent around them, and they began sharing their stories. Sarah spoke of her long hours at the nursing home while raising 2 children alone. Each word poured out like a river of dreams dashed against the boulders of hardship. Mr. Thompson listened intently, his eyes softening. He, who had once floated in a bubble of privilege, found himself genuinely moved by the sacrifices Sarah made. It dawned on him how he had lost touch with the everyday struggles that define the lives of so many Americans. The sacred moment of connection shattered as an airline employee sneered, "Guess you won't be making that flight, lady." The bite in her words tasted like bitter truth. Sarah's chest tightened. Here she was, on the precipice of her daughter's big day, standing amidst a revelation shared with this man who once walked in circles of wealth. What did that employee know about her fight? Anger and indignation whipped through her, yet there was a flicker of rebellion in that vulnerability, a truth that bound them in dignity. As the medical team arrived, Mr. Thompson regained his composure. "I am actually the owner of this airline," he said, humility threading through his voice. The revelation changed everything. No arrogance lingered in his tone, instead, he seemed burdened. A new realization washed over him: his company had strayed from its roots of service, a place once defined by care, community, and social responsibility. Sarah stayed silent, her heart racing. Could she trust him? "You helped me today, Sarah," he promised with sincerity rimming his words. "I'll get you to your daughter's graduation, somehow." Still, doubts lingered like shadows, whispering uncertainty against the brightness of hope. Just as their lives entwined on that crowded floor, her phone buzzed, a gentle reminder for her daughter's ceremony that set off rapid-fire thoughts about her dreams facing a dim reality. What if this was a change not only for her, but for Mr. Thompson as well? Would he truly be the one to bridge the gap between their worlds? The terminal swirled around them, families celebrating, oblivious to the weight of the truth unfolding. Would Sarah board that flight or embark on a journey that could redefine everything? As the flight board flickered with updates, hearts hung in the balance on the edge of a decision that could transform their very existence. Sarah felt a surge of emotions battling inside her. The chaos of the terminal buzzed in the background, but she was focused solely on Mr. Thompson, whose gaze was steady, his voice clear. "Trust is a powerful thing, isn't it?" he murmured, his words striking like a bell in her ear. She found herself nodding almost unconsciously, her heart torn between the weight of her responsibilities and the thrilling possibility of change. The reality of her situation settled in. She could let herself feel vulnerable, could trust this man whose life had once brushed against luxury, or she could retreat to the safe monotony of her daily struggles. A low hum of despair mingled with the urgency that rippled through her. What if this is just another empty promise? She felt herself think, yet a whisper of hope nestled in the back of her mind. It was the very hope she had sacrificed, buried beneath long work hours and bills that never seemed to end. Once the medical team had attended to Mr. Thompson, he stood with an effort that surprised her. He straightened his back, brushing off the concern etched on his face. "Let us find a way to get you there," he said decisively. Sarah's breath caught. There was something about his determination that ignited a cautious spark within her. She glanced at the digital display board. Time was slipping away. Is it really possible? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Thompson met her gaze with unwavering sincerity. I can make it happen. You deserve this day with your daughter. His words felt like warmth on a cold winter morning, melting away some of her doubt. Nervously, she glanced around, noticing how the other passengers were still in their own worlds of excitement, laughter, and love. Her heart raced at the thought that she could miss her daughter's big day. I've worked so hard for this moment, for her, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Mr. Thompson nodded, understanding evident in his eyes. Then let us make sure you don't miss it. Come with me, he urged, motioning toward a quieter corner of the terminal. He led her to what looked like an office door, tucked away from the bustling crowd. A security guard stood outside, seeming to recognize Mr. Thompson with the reverence one might reserve for a hero. I'll explain everything, he assured her, as they stepped inside, away from the noise. The small room was filled with travel memorabilia and awards, remnants of Mr. Thompson's past. It smelled faintly of fresh paint and jet fuel, a reminder of the adventures and the dreams that flew through the skies. Could you do something for me, Sarah? He asked, his voice serious. Help me understand how we lost our way as a company. We've become so focused on profits that we forgot our most valuable asset, people. His eyes searched hers, and Sarah felt his sincerity reach into her heart. We need to remember what it means to serve others. His plea resonated deep within her soul, stirring thoughts of change, not just for herself and her family, but for everyone who depended on the airline. There, in the shadow of the bustling terminal, a flicker of something larger began to glow between them, a connection born of struggle, empathy, and a shared desire for better. Just then, Mr. Thompson's phone vibrated insistently on his desk. He picked it up, and a frown creased his forehead. It's my COO. I hope it's good news, he murmured. He turned away slightly, still holding her gaze but distracted. The pressing urgency of the call hung in the air like a storm cloud. For what it's worth, whatever happens next, I'm with you, Sarah said quietly, feeling the weight of her decision. Would she take a leap of faith? What awaited them on the other side of this door, this tentative alliance? Before he could respond, the call seemed to intensify, his expression shifting. Something about the conversation made her heart plummet. As he pressed the phone to his ear, she sensed the clash of fate was upon them, and the future wavered like a candle in the wind. What could this mean for both of them? Would their intertwined paths lead to hope or despair? Sarah leaned in, breathless, as she prepared to confront whatever lay ahead, uncertainty crackling in the air. Mr. Thompson's voice dropped to a tense whisper as he paced slightly, his words rapid and urgent. No, I don't care about the costs right now. We need to focus on the passengers. Sarah could barely hear the other side of the conversation, but the relentless beep of the phone against his ear made her stomach knot. She stood there, heart racing with unpredictability. What if this call derailed everything? Would she lose the chance to see her daughter? Was this man truly committed to her cause, or was it all just lip service? Just hold on a minute, he said, the sharp edge of determination cutting through his otherwise calm exterior. He turned back to her, his eyes dark with concern. I'm sorry. This is important. She felt like an intruder in this whirlwind of corporate crisis. The reality of her life loomed over her once more, every decision, every sacrifice, all for the love of her daughter. In that quiet room, surrounded by reminders of flights gone by, her dreams blended with a fear that swelled in her chest, but she couldn't leave without trying. Mr. Thompson, she started, unsure if her voice would break but fueled by desperation, what if there's a way to make this work for both of us? Your company needs its heart back, and I need to get to my girl. For a fleeting moment, his eyes softened, almost as if he recognized the weight of their shared burdens. He lowered his phone. I want to help you, Sarah. I really do. I don't want to let any passenger down, especially not you. His gaze was steady, and she felt a strange resolve wash over her. What if you showed me how you plan to make things right at the airline? I'll help ensure you don't let anyone down either. We can do this together. But I need to know my daughter is on that stage. Mr. Thompson seemed to hesitate, the phone still clutched in his hand like an anchor tethering him to his duties. I'll lay out my plan. But you need to promise you'll trust me, he said firmly. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding with urgency and purpose. She saw an opportunity unfurling before her, something meaningful, something more than just a chance to catch a flight. The conversation unfolded like a fragile flower, as Mr. Thompson began to outline his thoughts on restoring the company's focus on people. As they talked, time faded in the background. Her pulse slowed, and for the first time in ages, hope rekindled. Just as they reached an understanding, the door swung open, and the security guard looked in, concern etched on his face. Mr. Thompson, we need to talk. There's a problem with the flight schedules, he said, his brows furrowed with urgency. Mr. Thompson shot a glance back at Sarah, a flicker of conflict crossing his features. Let us continue this after I'm done here. But she began, panic surging with the threat of separation as he stepped toward the guard. I won't let you miss this. I promise. He called back, the sincerity of his tone catching her off guard, igniting the hope she had thought extinguished. As the door closed behind him, Sarah stood alone in the room, the weight of his promise wrapping around her. She closed her eyes for a moment, wishing hard that the universe would align. The seconds ticked by, feeling like hours. Somewhere beyond that door, a conversation was taking place that might change everything. What if, against all odds, they both emerged victorious? Would the trust forged in that small room withstand the storm brewing just outside? With uncertainty still hanging in the air like an unpinned balloon, Sarah felt a small flutter of determination. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every passenger whose dreams could take flight again. Somewhere in that moment, the hum of the terminal faded just a little, and all she could think about was, what could be waiting for them on the other side, and if she would ever be able to hold her little girl in her arms again. The door opened, and Mr. Thompson returned, his expression intense, but there was something different about him, as if a new resolve had taken root. Sarah, he said, urgency draping his voice, we have a chance to make a real change. But it involves risking everything. What could be so crucial that he needed to risk it all? The weight of his words landed heavy in the air between them. Sarah's heart pounded. Was she ready for this? Sarah, listen, Mr. Thompson began, his voice edged with urgency. There's a critical decision being made right now about the future of this airline. If we don't act fast, it could not only affect the schedules but the very essence of our service. Her heart raced, curiosity and fear battling for dominance. What do you mean? What is happening? He leaned closer, his eyes locking onto hers, brimming with intensity. There's a proposal on the table to cut costs in ways that would hurt our customers more than just flights, Sarah. It's about the experience, the connections we make. The very thing that keeps people loyal. Though his words came out quick, the gravity behind them was palpable. Sarah could see the concern etched on his face, see the commitment clearly shining through. But, he continued, a lot of people are against it. If I can rally support from the ground up, we can change the board's mind. We need passionate voices, people who know what it means to rely on us. That's where you come in. With each word, she felt the spark of purpose flare within her. This was more than just her predicament now, it was about the many lives impacted by their decisions, hers included. I can help, she said, resolve washing over her. But how? What do you need me to do? There's a gathering planned later today, a chance to address the team. A forum where employees speak out. If I convince them that we can be better, I need someone like you who can share your experience. It'll resonate. But I'm just one passenger in a sea of customers, she began, doubt creeping in. No, he interrupted. You can be the spark. You have the story that can change minds. Tell them what missing your flight means. What missing your daughter means. Bring the heart back into this. Suddenly, the daunting weight of responsibility became clearer. She would have to bare her soul, expose her vulnerabilities to strangers, all in a bid to save her daughter's future and countless others. But she also recognized an unmistakable truth: her experience mattered. "I'll do it. I'll share my story," Sarah said, her voice steady now. "But what if it doesn't work? What if they don't listen?" Mr. Thompson's expression softened. "It will work. People want to feel connected again. We've lost sight of that. Your words could help remind them." As the impossible hope swelled in her chest, she swallowed hard, grappling with the emotional surge. "What about you? What are you risking?" "Everything," he said, the candor in his tone steady. "This is my job, my reputation. If this fails, I could lose it all. But I believe in what we're trying to do." His honesty resonated deeply with her. She was not alone in this fight. Together, they were forging ahead against a fearsome current, hoping they could set it right. Suddenly, a loud disruption echoed through the terminal. It was an announcement. A flight delay. The unsettling buzz of murmurs rose around them, all too familiar. "See?" Mr. Thompson stated, glancing around the waiting area. "So many people depend on this, and they're beginning to lose faith. We need to stir it back." Her heart pounded as they both exchanged a determined glance. "Let us do this," he said, his voice turning steely. As they began to move toward the conference room, her stomach turned with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. What if she reprised this role of hope at the gathering? Would she be able to speak her truth and ignite a spark? In that moment, she realized that her world was expanding beyond just her immediate concerns. She was now a lifeline for all those who longed for more than just a ticket home. But beyond the horizon of this chance stood a hidden truth. What if, during this act of boldness, unmarked paths to her destiny opened up deep within? Their feet pounded against the terminal floor, filled with urgency and purpose. She could feel the pull of something greater ahead. Was she ready to embrace it all? As they approached the meeting room, doubt flickered within her like a dying light, yet somewhere, hope flickered stronger. What awaited them behind those closed doors could change everything. Would she find the strength to stand before the crowd? Would it lead her closer to her daughter, or divert her further away? As they reached the conference room door, Sarah's heartbeat quickened, a frantic drum echoing the uncertainty swirling in her mind. Mr. Thompson turned to her, his expression a mix of determination and reassurance. "No matter what happens in there, remember why you're doing this." Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded. She firmly gripped the door handle, her fingers trembling slightly. With a swift yank, it swung open, and the sound of muted conversations filled her ears. The room was flooded with anxious employees, their faces a patchwork of concern and curiosity. She stepped inside, feeling the eyes of her colleagues meet hers. A wave of intensity enveloped her. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was a collective heartbeat, a community bound together by hope and fear. Mr. Thompson found a spot near the front, gesturing for Sarah to join him. "Let us get this started," he said, his voice steadying the atmosphere. One by one, members of the airline team began to share their thoughts, each voice adding to the tapestry of emotions woven with passion and commitment. But as Sarah stood there, listening, she felt an unsettling weight in her chest. Their words resonated, yet she knew she had to elevate the conversation. When the moment came for her to speak, she felt paralyzed. What if her truth was just a whisper in the storm of corporate chaos? Could her story really inspire change? Finally, Mr. Thompson offered her a gentle nudge forward. It was now or never. She inhaled deeply, her heart racing. Hi everyone," she began, her voice betraying a slight tremor. As she looked around, she saw faces of friends, colleagues, and strangers, each of them tangled in their own narrative of loss and hope. She found a flicker of strength within her. "I'm Sarah. I recently faced a situation that made me think deeply about this airline. I was in the middle of a crisis and all I could think was how I needed to get to my daughter. I missed my flight. She paused, swallowing back her nerves, and it was the hardest thing I've ever faced. The room fell silent. She could feel their curiosity radiating toward her, coaxing her to continue. I faced a delay. It was frustrating, heartbreaking because it meant my little girl would have to wait. Not just for me, but for her entire world to be right again. Every minute counted. The murmurs replaced her silence, a wave of empathy washing through them. She pressed on, pouring out her truth. But I realized something immense in that chaos. It's not just about getting people from one place to another. It's about the connections we build. It's about the families waiting for their loved ones. It's about being part of something bigger, a community that should care for each other. With every word, she saw more nods and empathetic expressions universally stitched among the crowd. They were resonating with her story, and her courage began to expand. When she finished, the room erupted into a mixture of applause and murmurs of agreement. She felt a warmth swell within her. Was this what connection felt like? She turned to Mr. Thompson, who wore a proud smile, teary-eyed and hopeful, yet, even amidst the applause, a sense of disquiet lingered. What if her emotions couldn't change the tide? What if the board remained steadfast in their plans, indifferent to the voices rallying in this room? As Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze scanned the room. Was this truly enough? Would she just fade into the background after this moment? Then, the room grew still, and an unexpected figure stood up at the back. An elderly man with a kind face. I couldn't help but overhear your story, he said, his voice steady but filled with warmth, and it inspired me. I am not just any passenger, but the owner of this airline. Gasps filled the air. Sarah's heart dropped, then soared, curiosity twisting inside her like a roller coaster. What decisions would he bring to the table? Your words matter, Sarah, he continued, and I think we need to have a more profound discussion. Just as hope blossomed anew, a wide-eyed realization hit her. What lay ahead was no longer just a battle for her daughter, but a fight to change everything for every passenger. What daring truths would she uncover next? The murmur of astonishment rippled through the room as Sarah absorbed the weight of the man's revelation. The owner of the airline. Her heart raced, a mix of hope and anxiety swirling inside her. What could he possibly want from her? The elderly man extended his hand, a warm, inviting gesture. Would you join me here, Sarah? I'd like to hear more about your experience. As she stepped forward, the air felt charged with a fresh energy. Colleagues leaned in, eager to witness the unfolding drama. Mr. Thompson gave her an encouraging nod, as if to say, "You've got this." With every step, her unease morphed into determination. What if this was an opportunity to create real change? What if her emotions could achieve something monumental? "Thank you," she said, taking a deep breath as she stood beside him. "I'm honored." The owner smiled, his eyes twinkling with kindness. The stories we hear can shape how we run this business. People want to feel valued, not just as passengers, but as part of our family. He paused, looking around the room. We have to prioritize that connection. A wave of agreement surged among the employees. Sarah saw their nightly conversations about the frustrations and the moments they had shared over the years. Sudden delays, lost bags, anxious wait times. No one had looked at these trials through the lens of connection before. If we could turn our focus around, the man continued, and make the journey not just about logistics but about healing, human connections, we could become so much more than a faceless airline. His words ignited something deep within her. Exactly. Every flight we take carries stories, hopes, fears. When I was late, I was just one mother. But there are thousands of us, each with a poignant story. The crowd listened, captivated by the exchange, as if they were suddenly part of a larger movement. Sarah felt the room shift, the momentum swirling into something incredible. Together they began brainstorming, suggesting ideas that would prioritize emotional delicacy over mere flight schedules. What if they could implement programs where employees engaged with passengers during long delays? What if they dedicated part of their app to share real-time stories of connections made on flights? Each idea seemed to breathe life into the room, but as she spoke, a black cloud of doubt loomed in the back of her mind. Could they really enact such changes? What did it take to make those at the top listen? She glanced at the owner, who seemed genuinely eager to listen to her insights. So why did she still feel terrified that nothing might change? Finally, he turned to the crowd. "I can't promise that tonight will solve everything," he said softly. "However, you have my word that I will take your voices to the board meeting next week. We need to discuss these changes together." An eruption of applause filled the room again, this time heavier with conviction. The elderly man's presence provided a beacon of hope for everyone gathered. His intention felt genuine, electric, and amidst it, Sarah felt buoyed by the belief that her moment had sparked a larger dream. As the meeting began to break up, she felt someone's hand on her shoulder. It was Mr. Thompson, beaming with pride. "You did it, Sarah. You ignited something powerful." Just then, she caught sight of the owner chatting with another executive. There was an undercurrent of tension beginning to bubble beneath the surface of their conversation. Curious thoughts lurked, questions waited to be asked. Would everything truly change? But a chilling thought washed over her. What if the board members were resistant? What if their determination crumbled under the weight of corporate greed? As uncertainty loomed, she wondered whether the sincerity of this moment could withstand the harsh realities of the industry. Could they genuinely redefine the airline experience for everyone, or would it be just talk? One thing was clear, this journey was far from over. And as she stood there, a renewed spark igniting in her spirit, Sarah knew she had to push deeper. What truths remained hidden? In the hearts of the people who ran this legacy, the next chapter of her fight was about to unfold. The days that followed were a blur of anticipation and anxiety. The idea of an actual board meeting loomed over Sarah like a storm cloud, full of potential lightning. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything she had hoped for could either flourish or fall apart in that one decisive moment. In the quiet of her apartment, she pored over her notes. The ideas they had crafted together seemed simple but charged with so much meaning. Each suggestion felt like a thread in a greater tapestry, one that illustrated a new dawn for the airline. Yet, the familiar nagging doubt crept back into her mind. What if her words fell onto deaf ears? What if the corporate machine had wires too tangled to allow change? Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Mr. Thompson. "Hey, how are you holding up?" His voice was a familiar anchor amidst her swirling uncertainty. "I'm okay, I guess. Just nervous." What if they don't care? She bit her lip, frustration simmering beneath her calm exterior. They do care. They invited us to be part of this conversation. Trust that, he urged, his sincere tone reassuring. And remember, you ignited something real. This is about more than airline logistics now. It's people, Sarah. The night before the meeting, she couldn't sleep. Each tick of the clock echoed like a drum against her chest. She imagined past passengers, their contributions to her life like woven gifts. The memories flooded her: smiling couples on their way to a wedding, children squealing with joy, the elderly man who needed help adjusting his glasses. They all believed in the journey. She needed to believe too. The morning of the meeting arrived like a deep breath, and as they gathered, she could feel the energy pulsating through the room. Mr. Thompson stood beside her, his presence a pillar of strength. The boardroom felt daunting, filled with executives who held the keys to change. But in that moment, Sarah saw something different: a sea of purpose. She could be a catalyst. Once the discussions began, the elderly man stood tall, exuding warmth and strength. Today, we're here to listen. To reshape how we connect with our passengers. Their journeys are more than just numbers. The board members nodded, casting sidelong glances at one another, their faces revealing a mix of intrigue and skepticism. One by one, Sarah and her colleagues shared their ideas. They spoke with passion, their words weaving a picture of empathy that resonated even with the most serious board members. It was invigorating. The air buzzed with possibilities as they visualized a new kind of airline, one that didn't just ferry people but also nurtured relationships. Then, just as momentum swelled, a voice cut through the optimism. "This sounds great, but can we afford it?" The question hung in the air, heavy. A few murmurs threaded through the room, and Sarah felt her heart sink. "Affordable change is the key to progress," Mr. Thompson responded confidently, rallying forward. "Connecting with your passengers will only bring loyalty, and loyalty, ultimately, leads to profit. What we're discussing is an investment not just in a service but in community." As the back and forth ensued, Sarah felt an unexpected determination rising from deep within. She stood up, her breath steady, and locked eyes with the owner. "We're not asking for charity, we're proposing a shift in culture. People remember how they were treated. They feel valued when their stories matter. Isn't that how you built this airline?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward her, and time seemed to stretch. In that moment, she wasn't just talking to them, she was sharing a piece of herself, igniting courage in her own heart. But the weight of uncertainty still loomed. The arguments against their vision were starting to take shape. Would their enthusiasm be enough to sway the older generation steeped in tradition? The air grew thick with tension. As they moved toward the conclusion of the meeting, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of impending change hanging above them. Had they done enough? Would their voices truly echo change where it was needed most? With a renewed sense of hope, she vowed that this was only the beginning. The fight wouldn't stop here, but as she stepped away, her thoughts drifted back to the other executive, the one who had expressed doubt. She locked eyes with him, sensing something deeper behind his frown. What more was there to uncover? What did his hesitation really mean? One thing was certain, Sarah felt the spark of transformation flickering. She just had to find a way to fuel it. The next chapter awaited, with questions still to be answered. Would they stand together, forged in shared vision and commitment? Or would the dream remain just that, a dream? The aftermath of the meeting buzzed in Sarah's mind like a swarm of bees. The boardroom had been electric, filled with voices that echoed her hopes and fears. Yet, as she left the building, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on her shoulders. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, breaking through her cloud of thoughts. It was a message from Mr. Thompson. "Let's meet up. I have an idea." Curiosity piqued, Sarah hurried to the nearby cafe. The smell of roasted coffee beans enveloped her, a comforting reminder to breathe. As she settled at a small table, she spotted Mr. Thompson's familiar figure pushing through the door, an eager smile lighting up his face. "Hey, you," he greeted, a hint of excitement in his voice. He slid into the chair across from her and leaned in. "I think we might have a way to turn the tide." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her heart racing. "The executive who raised the cost concerns the one with the skeptical frown. I think he might be our secret ally," Mr. Thompson said, his eyes sparkling with hope. "What do you know about him?" Sarah asked, leaning closer. "He's been with the airline for decades, but he's also a family man. I overheard something at the meeting. His granddaughter was supposed to fly last month, but ended up stranded due to last-minute cancellations. He cares about customer experience more than he lets on," Mr. Thompson explained. A flicker of inspiration lit within Sarah. "Then we need to find a way to approach him. If he understands our passion, maybe he'll back us," she said, tapping her fingers nervously on the table. "Damar." Thompson nodded, visibly pleased. "Exactly. But how do we get his attention?" Before Sarah could respond, her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of shuffling chairs and laughter nearby. She turned to see an elderly man sitting with a group of young adults, animatedly sharing stories. His eyes sparkled with wisdom and experience. A wave of nostalgia washed over Sarah. She couldn't help but think back to her own grandfather, who loved to share tales of his travels. It was a connection rooted not just in family but in shared journeys. "Look at him," Mr. Thompson said, gesturing toward the man. "That's exactly what we want to capture, the spirit of connection." She watched the elderly man, He was telling a story about a flight he'd taken years ago, describing it with such vibrancy that the group around him was completely captivated. The warmth of the moment hit Sarah like a splash of cold water. She needed to find a way to share this kind of storytelling with the airline. Suddenly, an idea formed. What if we create a customer experience program that invites passengers to share their stories? We could document their journeys and even feature them in our advertising. What is more authentic than the human experience? Mr. Thompson's face broke into a wide smile. Now that's the spirit. It could be a game changer. Just then, the elderly man looked over at their table, as if sensing their excitement. Sarah caught his gaze and smiled. He smiled back, a knowing glimmer in his eyes that sparked a connection she couldn't quite articulate. "Let us talk to him," she whispered, her heart pounding. They approached the table, and Sarah felt a mix of confidence and vulnerability surge through her. She wanted to share her vision and reach out, but would he be receptive? "Excuse me, sir," she began, suddenly nervous. "We couldn't help but overhear your story. Your passion for travel is infectious. It reminded us of why we're so committed to changing our airline for the better." The man peered at her over his glasses, intrigue filling his expression. "Oh. What kind of changes are you proposing?" As Sarah opened her mouth to speak, she realized just how crucial this moment could be. The idea of sharing a connection through storytelling was one thing, but actually seeing it unfold felt monumental. But as he listened, would the warmth of his smile turn into support? Or might it lead to further doubt? Sarah couldn't tell yet, but hope buoyed her spirit. This conversation could spark something greater than their meeting had. Yet, as she spoke, a familiar twist of hesitation crept back in. Would this kind man be the turning point they desperately needed? And just as the conversation deepened, Sarah wondered what would he reveal about his own journey with the airline. His eyes twinkled as Sarah spoke, and the elderly man leaned forward, hanging on her every word. There was a wisdom in his gaze, and as she elaborated on her vision, she could see his interest growing. "Our goal is to humanize the experience of flying. We want to hear from our passengers, to understand their stories, so we can create a culture that truly values connection," she said, her voice steadying with excitement. The man stroked his chin, nodding slowly. "I see. You want to turn flights into memories." His tone was thoughtful, as if he were piecing together a puzzle in his mind. "Yes. Exactly," Sarah replied, her heart racing at the chance of making a real impact. "And featuring those stories could change everything from how we market our services to how we treat our customers. If they feel valued, they will keep coming back." He smiled, a soft, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "There's beauty in every journey. I've experienced that firsthand." He paused as if reflecting on memories of his own travels. "But tell me, what makes you so passionate about this?" The question hung in the air, and Sarah's mind raced. This wasn't just about business for her. She thought of her grandfather's stories, how they had shaped her understanding of the world. "Because every flight has a story behind it," she began. "For some, it's a heartwarming reunion. For others, it's a bittersweet farewell. I want to ensure that our airline isn't just a means to an end, but a part of those significant moments." The elderly man's eyes shimmered, and for a heartbeat, she felt a connection that transcended the noise of the cafe around them. Perhaps he had witnessed these moments himself, perhaps he understood. "I've always believed that airlines should be more than just transportation," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "They should be a bridge between people and their experiences." Sarah could hardly contain her excitement. "Exactly. We could start by launching a pilot program and see how it goes." But just as she was about to share her next steps, a shadow flickered across his face. "You have a passion, young lady, but it won't be easy." He paused, the weight of his words palpable. "I was once in a position where I had to make tough decisions myself. I fear your journey may be filled with obstacles." His candor took Sarah by surprise. Are you saying you've been through this before? She asked. Let's just say I know the airline industry well, he replied, a hint of nostalgia lacing his words. And I also know the hesitation that comes from those at the top. They fear anything that might disrupt the status quo. The warmth that first sparked between them flickered again, but Sarah wouldn't let doubt seep into their moment. Then what's the way forward? Should we appeal to your fellow executives with personal stories? If they see the impact through individual experiences, it might change their minds, she suggested, her resolve strengthening. He sat back, contemplating. It would require courage and perhaps a leap of faith. Another pause hung between them, thick with potential. As their conversation deepened, the young adult surrounding the elderly man faded into the background. Sarah felt a shift, as if this moment might hold more significance than she ever anticipated. But just then, his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen, his expression suddenly turning serious. I need to take this call, he said, a flicker of regret crossing his face. Of course, Sarah replied, her heart sinking a little. Would she lose this chance? Would he see her passion enough to want to assist her? Before he stood up, he leaned in closer, his voice lowering conspiratorially. Don't give up easily, Sarah. Sometimes stories become more powerful when shared among the right people. I may have some ideas that could help. Can I reach out to you? Sarah nodded eagerly, her hopes reigniting. Absolutely. Here's my card. She handed it to him, her fingers tingling with anticipation. As he walked away, fear crept back in. Would he really reach out? Did she just witness the opening of a door, or would it remain closed? She took a deep breath, recognizing it would take persistence and courage to make her vision a reality. The stakes felt higher than ever, but something told her that their paths were destined to cross again, and as she sat back, heart racing and senses alert, she couldn't help but wonder what awaited outside the cafe walls. Would their conversation turn into action? And could the tides truly be changed with a story? The days rolled on, filled with fleeting moments that felt heavy with possibility. Sarah couldn't shake the urgency that weighed on her heart. The meeting with the elderly man had sparked something profound. But deep down, uncertainty lingered. Would her dreams of change for the airline, for caring connections that uplifted families, come to fruition? Then, one bright morning, her phone buzzed. The name flashed on her screen. Mr. Thompson. Let us meet. I have incredible news, he said, his tone bubbling with energy. Sarah felt the acceleration of her heartbeat. What could it be? She hurried to their cafe spot, anticipation coursing through her veins. When she arrived, Mr. Thompson was already seated, a broad smile illuminating his features. I spoke to the board after reflecting on your ideas and the momentum we built together. They're open to a pilot program focused on passenger stories. We have a meeting scheduled later this week to discuss implementation. A wave of emotion crashed over Sarah, and her heart soared. Really? They listened? Absolutely. Your impassioned speech really struck a chord, he replied, pride shining in his eyes. We need to capitalize on that energy. It's time to gather your experiences, formulate a plan, and present it. We're on the cusp of something great, Sarah. As they brainstormed ideas, laughter bubbled between them. Ideas flowed freely. Weekly storytelling sessions, social media posts that humbly celebrated passengers' journeys, perhaps even storytelling competitions that could encourage more participants. But with those bright ideas came a shadow of fear. What if it all falls apart? What if they decide it's too risky? Sarah's voice trembled slightly. Change is often met with fear. But if we can touch hearts, inspire trust, and reflect the real stories that travel through the skies, that's what truly matters, Mr. Thompson said, a firm resolve in his tone. With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah dedicated herself to gathering stories from friends, family, and anyone willing to share. The more she collected, the more she felt the weight of their truths. Each tale was a thread woven into a rich tapestry, lighting up her spirit with the shared experiences of joy, sorrow, and connection. Days later, the presentation day dawned. Sarah stood nervously in front of the board members, holding her breath as she scanned the room. Each face wore an expression that alternated between intrigue and caution. "I stand here not just for myself or my daughter, but for everyone who has felt the weight of love and longing while traveling. Each of our journeys holds a poignant story that connects us with one another," Sarah began, her voice a mix of vulnerability and strength. The room held its breath as she shared the stories she had collected, moments stolen from time, laughter over cups of coffee, tears of joy. The audience shifted, a palpable connection sparking in the air. When she finished, silence enveloped the room. A moment stretched long before the elderly man from the cafe broke the quiet. "You see these words, these stories? They're the heart and soul of what we do." His voice carried a weight of authority and compassion that felt electric. "Well said, sir," Mr. Thompson chimed in, his pride for Sarah evident. "Our success won't just stem from profits but from the experiences that shape who we are." One by one, heads began to nod, faces brightened with understanding. The momentum grew, a collective realization washing over the room. It wasn't just about profits, it was about creating a culture of care that resounded within the depths of their airline legacy. And then, a vote was called. The resolve grew strong, and hands were raised, nodding affirmation. The air hummed with a sense of hope, a dream unfolding into action. As the meeting concluded, Sarah stepped outside. The cool breeze kissed her cheeks as sunlight poured over her. Tears of joy streamed down her face. She felt lighter, unburdened. She had done it. Through resilience, vulnerability, and trust in the stories of countless hearts, change was finally within reach. And just as her spirit soared, her phone buzzed again. "Sarah, you in for a celebration?" It was Mr. Thompson. "Always," she replied, a radiant smile lighting her face. They met surrounded by laughter and good vibes, but Sarah knew instinctively that the journey had only begun. Together, they would reclaim the airline's mission, infusing it with compassion and connection that stretched far beyond each flight. As the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, she could see a future sparkling with possibilities. Every obstacle faced had led to this moment, a new beginning that intertwined the lives of people in a way that would linger on through the skies. The heart of the airline had been reignited, and in that glow, Sarah found her purpose renewed, a commitment not only to her daughter and herself but to everyone who dared to dream and connect in these shared journeys. The world expanded before her, filled with hope and promise. And now, the call echoed clearer than ever. It was time to soar. If you loved this story and want to see more transformations that can touch your heart, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending, and remember, don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this inspiration. Together, we can spread stories that lift each other higher.